Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports. And yesterday was election day, and you might be a little bit in the dumps, feeling bad about how the Republicans massively underperformed the polling and expectations in a really embarrassing manner. Now, a lot of people were calling me a doomer, and I like to think of myself more as like a lookout. And I was getting a lot of flack as being a black pillar, but it looks like it was kind of warranted. We're going to break down my thoughts because I had a lot of time to think about it, did a lot of shows, a lot of streams. Check out my stream from last night. I did a joint stream with John Fawcett, Roger Stone, Nick Giordano. It was pretty cool. Had some good discussion, and we also had a lot of fun, jokes, memes. Picked on Brylan Hollyhand a little bit. It was a good time. Check it out on our YouTube channel, Rasmussen_poll. I also did a couple other really good video segments. Sean Spicer today. Go check that out as well. Now, I'm going to try to be positive and not dump too much on the Republican Party, but I think they need a little bit of tough love, and hopefully they'll take a message from this video. First, we'll go to JD Vance, who was one of the early ones to come out and react to yesterday's defeat. I think it's idiotic to overreact to a couple of elections in blue states, but a few thoughts. It's not idiotic to overreact if there are lessons to be learned, and that's what I'm saying. I think we need to apply some rational thought here and understand if the Republican Party is equipped to effectively push conservative ideals, restore the country, bring the American dream back. Donald Trump promised a lot. And if there's feedback, we're going to talk about it. So we're not overreacting. Scott Presler, Turning Point USA, and a bunch of others have been working hard to register voters. Probably not enough, but yes. I said it in 2022, and I've said it repeatedly since. Our coalition is lower propensity, and that means we have to do better at turning out voters than we have in the past. We're going to examine that with a scalpel tonight. We need to focus on the home front. Yes, the president has done a lot that has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation. People aren't really feeling it yet. That's the problem. But we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay, fair. But your window's closing, and people can see that Republicans in Congress are doing nothing. We're going to keep on working to make a decent life affordable in this country, and that's the metric by which we will ultimately be judged in 2026 and beyond. Okay, yeah, set the victory criteria here. The infighting is stupid. I really, really agree. I care about my fellow citizens, particularly young Americans. This is kind of him in a tongue-in-cheek manner. Again, refusing to throw people under the bus like the young Republicans in their little chat. Being able to afford a decent life. I care about immigration and our sovereignty. These are the things. He gets it. These are the things that they're upset about. And I care about establishing peace overseas so our resources can be focused at home. Interesting way to frame it, JD. If you care about these things too, let's work together. He's trying to bring together this the Zoomer boomer fight over Israel that's tearing the party apart. We'll talk about that a little bit. Donald Trump framed it a little bit differently. However, here's Asmongold just reacting to a minute or two of Trump speaking before basically he mandated all Republican senators come to breakfast this morning where he berated them. But if it's really idiotic to overreact about yesterday, I don't think that this breakfast thing would be happening today. We'll just take a quick peek at this. I always love examining things through the lens of Asmongold.
All right.
Thank you very much. That was quite a formal entrance. I thought we were just going to sit down and talk a little bit.
Okay.
We talk about exactly
I could not,
1
bro.
year
I could
ago
not
we
deal
had
with that.
Big, beautiful victory. Exactly 1 year. And last night it was, not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure
You
it was
got
good.
fucked. Y'all guys got. You didn't bring home the bacon, and people are mad. That's what happened. Yep.
For anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. And we're going to talk about that, and I'll say a few remarks, and then after that, I'll ask the press to leave. The press has been very, very nice to us the last couple of months. They were great to us in terms of the foreign visits with China, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia.
You see, it was a really big deal, these visits, and the timing was questionable. And I know he was trying to make these deals, but it just piled on top of a powder keg of some pretty bad optics.
And they were actually terrific. So I want to thank you for that. I'm sure you'll get back to your normal ways soon. But we did a great job over in China. and we've done a great job in turning off wars. We stopped 8 wars, and we have 1 to go.
Is he
as you
counting the
probably know,
console
and
war
that'll get
between
stopped
Xbox
also.
and PlayStation?
But we've done a great job, so it's really been
Is that part of it or
honor
not?
to do it, and I did it with many of the people in this room. Every one of you I know, and
Yes,
every one of
okay.
you I like. I like our leaders. I like everybody. But I thought we'd have a discussion after the press leaves about what last night represented and
Yeah.
what we should do about it, and also about the shutdown and how that relates to last night. I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was
It didn't have to be. The reaction in Trump's approval wasn't horrifying in the polling for the shutdown. But just in the last week or two, I think because of Snap, I think because of the optics, I think because the Republicans were MIA, it all just started to hit at once, and independent approval plummeted. And I really think, because I was calling for the shutdown, but I was calling for the shutdown as a leverage point to apply to Democrats or to the federal government to make progress, fire people, get legislation, use the nuclear, do something. But there was no plan. They've just been voting the clean CR over and over again and failing.
a big factor. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor.
That's probably true.
But I don't know about that. But I was honored that.
That's a huge problem, though. It is. That's a massive problem. If Trump is the only way that the GOP and the Republicans can win any election, then you're basically on a timer. That's a massive issue.
Yep. Clock's ticking.
I said that. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. And a very special thanks to Vice President J.D. Vance, who's doing a terrific job. J.D., thank you very much.
Yeah, he goes on and like thanks some people and stuff like that. But this is apparently reports about what happened behind closed doors inside the room per multiple GOP senators. After reporters were kicked out, Trump said the election results showed that the shutdown has been worse than us for them, that ours are getting killed. And again, I don't think it had to be this way because people didn't respond really at the beginning of the shutdown. Like nobody really cared. And yet nothing happened. Russ Vought, did he even fire those 4,000 people? Like nothing happened. They could have literally made this shutdown painful to the Democrats somehow. I don't know how. Maybe play a little fast and loose with the rules. You have judges everywhere ignoring the Constitution. You're going to get Democrats back in office in the Congress. They're going to impeach Donald Trump. Maybe they'll go after Twitter. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but we all know it's going to be existential. Trump said the GOP will become a dead party if they don't nuke the filibuster. I looked it up on Twitter, and I've been calling for the nuclear option at least since February 9th, at least. Finally, Trump agrees, and we're in a place where I guess the Republicans in the Senate don't think they have the political capital, or maybe they don't have the political will to do it. But you have a Senate whip, John Barrasso. And when Donald Trump calls all the senators to a breakfast in the White House, then he's whipping for the Republicans. Why is he the one that has to do that? Why don't you use the same kind of leverage that we all know that Democrats will use to people on their own side? It will be a dead party, I think. They have to get a way out of it. Now the Democrats have basically turned this around on the Republicans. I really don't see a way out of this for the Republicans. Democrats can just keep refusing to vote. Shutdown just drags on for Republicans, looks horrifying. They don't get anything out of it. They're not going to use the nuclear option and pass bills. They're not doing anything to the executive. Like, what are they doing? Trump got into it with Lindsey Graham after Graham tried to make the point that they can still use reconciliation to pass legislation with a simple majority. But they're not, though. And reconciliation, in my opinion, doesn't even look that good. All people know it's another 3,000-page bill, and the American people always get screwed by those things. And I bet you he said it with a little smile on his face because he probably has a whole lot of pork in there. Favors due and payable to Senator Lindsey Graham, and he wants that bill to pass. And you know what? You can't give Americans good one-page bills on things they want because then you can't attach the pork to it. That's the problem. And so I think now, faced with utter catastrophe for the Republican Party, for them to be completely committed to the former establishment horrifying way of doing things that doesn't work. They need to be based, they need to be taking aggressive action, and instead they act like complete cuckolds. And Lindsey Graham, in my opinion, the most widely mocked endorsement of Donald Trump. Why did he do it? Is the one that has the balls to stand up here and ask this. Trump then snapped at Graham. Lindsey, you and I both know that there's only so much that you can do with reconciliation. I wish he had also revoked his endorsement. But let's look at the results and the polling. And first off, let me say, I do still think that blue state cheating is going on. And no, I don't know how much. I don't know how much. I think a significant amount, believe it or not, but there's no way to know. And yet, the actual results in Virginia were worse than the polling. The final reported results for the governor's race was 14.6 points to Spanberger, and the Real Clear Politics average was only 10 points. Now, I did not poll this race, and it's because I didn't think it was going to be close and that I thought my polling would have nothing to add. And I guess I was right. I don't know where I would have come out. But if you look at the bookends here, YouGov actually did kind of okay. And who is the Trafalgar Group had Spanberger +7. So those are kind of the recent bookends. And I think before you kind of saw stuff all over the place. Trafalgar Insider had Spanberger up as little as 4 and 17 here. I'm seeing Roanoke. Now, one of the problems is that you have the sample, but you never know what the electorate's going to look like. You basically have to figure out what you're going to put your party weightings at, and you make a guess. Well, it's not a presidential cycle, it's an off cycle, and we can look at 2021 and we can make conclusions based on that. And in 2021, you see, wow, like Youngkin did better than everybody expected. And how did that happen? Is it because the state is becoming more Republican? Is it because Republicans are turning out more? Is it because the independents are deciding to vote more Republican? And I think it's a mix of all those things. But one of the things I think is that it was backlash for COVID. And those people didn't materialize this time. And also, Trump did a lot better in Virginia than people expected. And why? I think we'll look at the numbers in New Jersey. We'll just hold on to that. So, not good. Not good at all. 15-point. Basically a 15-point loss in a state that went for a Republican governor. Was Winsome Sears the best candidate? No, somebody basically said, look, she's like got all the DEI check boxes. She's a boomer con. She supports Israel and she ran from Trump. And that's bad. And I also hear she didn't run a great, and I honestly don't think that in a blue state like Virginia, a traditional Republican candidate is going to win. Can a MAGA candidate have won this? I don't think so either. But there's still benefits to running somebody like that. You're teaching people in the state what the platform of the Republican Party is. And they're still running on traditional conservatism, which I'm sorry, but the country's going in a different direction. They think conservatism, capitalism has largely failed people, and they're kind of right. New York City mayor, that's what's next. And this one's actually pretty decent. Mamdani won by 9. Real Clear Politics aggregate was 14. So it was closer, and the polling missed to the left here, not to the right. So this one's a little bit trickier because it was a 3-candidate race. The big surprise here is that people who said they were going to vote for Sliwa just didn't bother turning out at all. And Cuomo got 42, which is higher than people thought he was going to get in the polling. But it's still kind of a wash. And if you add these up, you still get to 48 or 49. So even if every person who voted to show up for Sliwa voted for Cuomo, it still probably wouldn't have been enough to put him over the top. And that's because, listen, it's a 37% immigrant city. Only like 10% of the city is registered Republicans. It's full of a whole lot of young people. And this is what young leftist Democrats want. This is where the protests were against Israel. Don't forget that. This is what the city wants, and they got what they wanted, and they're really happy about it. And quite frankly, I don't think they care that he's a socialist. I think that they like the fact that socialism pisses off the right. And that's one of the reasons I think he won. This guy's probably going to be the face of democratic socialism now. You already see Bernie filing in behind him and saying, no, he's not that radical. This is what they're going to run now. The squad is ascendant. This is the Democrat Party. The final vestiges of pragmatic centrism in the Democrat Party are gone. Think you're going to see all of the olds who represent the the legacy sort of like fade into irrelevance already? I think Nancy Pelosi's not going to run again, and Chuck Schumer's probably going to get taken out by AOC or something. I guess we'll see. But let's look at New Jersey, and this one was the big one. The polling was off by like 10 points. The final Real Clear Politics aggregate was about 3 points, which is just about where Chitterelli wound up underwater in 2021. And it was actually a 13-point loss. Really, really major loss. Every single county in the state moved left compared to 2024. And if you look at the polling, Atlas actually had Sherrill only winning by 1 point. And everybody was kind of clustered in like the mid to low single digits. Now, the last time we polled, we only polled once in the state, and I came out in the beginning of October with a Sherrill up 6. And if you look, I have 40% going to Chitterelli. And in my opinion, I think I would have gotten a lower number if I ran this again. So I don't think I would have been too far off. I don't think I would have had a negative 13, though. It probably would have been somewhere around like 8 or 9, because this was in the beginning when the shutdown had just started. The right hadn't started freaking out yet. Independent approval of Trump was in the negative teens, which wasn't as bad as it was today. And so in the only race I polled, I don't think we did that bad. But again, this was an utter surprise, a complete and tragic loss for Jack. He went from -3 to -13. And my take on why is basically it's a Democrat state and you ran a traditional Republican. If you look at the vote tallies, Jack Chitterelli got 1.38 million votes. Well, he didn't even get 1.3 million in 2021, so he went up a pretty decent amount. He improved his vote share. But Donald Trump got 2 million votes just last year. And so 1.38 million over 2 million comes out to roughly about 70%. So Jack Chitterelli only converted 70% of Donald Trump's 2024 vote. Mikey Sherrill, on the other hand, got 1.8 million compared to Kamala Harris's 2.2 million. It's closer to 89%. So she converted more of the presidential election turnout, and Jack Chitterelli just did not. Well, why is that? Well, it is a Democrat plus 10 state by registration, and Donald Trump only lost by 5 or 6 back in 2024, a year ago. And how does that happen? It happens with a ton of independent votes and with crossover Democrat votes. Jack Chitterelli didn't get those. Was he a bad Republican candidate? No, but he did not have a chance of winning, in my opinion, in a Democrat state when Democrats were pissed off over Trump, when a government shutdown was happening, when EBT payments had been cut off, when the Epstein case was still not put to rest. Like all of this stuff, like Donald Trump doing the ballroom and flying around the world, meeting with people in glitz and glamour while folks are still struggling to buy groceries. That's the problem. They wanted him focused on domestic policy, and he has, but in a pretty scattershot way that hasn't, in my opinion, yielded enough results. Here is Donald Trump's approval today, and it's at 46%, total disapprove 53%. He's underwater 7 points. That's only 1 point away from the lowest of his term, which was on election day, -8 points. And Right Track is at 40%, keeps flirting with 39%. It actually went below 39, breaking the 37 consecutive week streak of 40% or higher right direction polling. And the Republicans approve of him, like just as much as they have before, 83%. But independents are down to 37% approve, 60% disapprove. So that's -23. It was -27 on election day. And that's bad. That's really bad considering that he started his term with independents at -6. So a complete and utter collapse in approval among independents and also young voters. 18 to 39-year-old voters back in February gave Donald Trump a 60% approval rating. People under 30 right now, it's only 35%. Complete and utter collapse. They feel like they've been betrayed. And when were these people the happiest with Donald Trump? And remember, they get all their news from the internet. It's all of the optics that were coming out of Doge. It was when Donald Trump was the most aggressive the most unhinged against the federal government. These people want burn it down politics, and they aren't getting it right now. And that's because the Trump administration got in the White House, surrounded by the donors, it's insulated, and it's just doing traditional president stuff. The Republican Party is not changing Washington, D.C. Looks like it's down there, taking breaks for tea time, waxing intellectual about all of the ways that they can't give Americans relief. J.D. Vance said it. The Biden administration was a crisis. It really messed up America, and they're working real hard. But the clock is ticking and the window is closing. Here's how it looks on a chart. So we've had a little bit of a dead cat bounce off the -8 bottom. And again, is this catastrophic? No, it's nowhere near as bad as Russia collusion hoax Donald Trump or Afghanistan crisis Joe Biden. But those presidents really lost a lot of political capital. They were pretty much dead in the water. And I think he'll probably recover back up into Obama territory. But again, this was right on election day. And if you look at the way Trump's talking to these people, they still don't really have a plan to get out of this. It's kind of catastrophic. Now, we can peruse the headlines at Rasmussen Reports and just see some of the things that we've been polling on that are in the news. And, super poor ratings for Congress. We'll take a look at those crosstabs. Too much influence for Israel. People want arrests because of all the scandals. Most voters don't like Trump's East Wing project. People want lots of economic populism. The first 39% right direction number of Trump's term. Economic concerns still focus on prices. People still concerned about COVID. There's no accountability. They think that the hospital protocols killed people. 67% of voters support ending corporate welfare. I mean, there's just a lot of things that were going on that were bad in the polling. Here's the one about congressional ratings, and I think that this is one of the most. I look at how do you rate the way Congress is doing its job? And this is the Republican Congress. 8% excellent, 12% good. That's 20%. Compared to 58% poor and 76% fair or poor. That's really, really horrifying. But then look by party. Only 32% of Republicans say excellent or good. 41% of them say poor. It's their own party. And look at independents. 3% excellent, 6% good, 23% fair, 65% poor, 88% fair or poor. The independents are incensed at Congress. They hate this. These numbers are horrifyingly bad. Horrifyingly bad. This is what the Republican Party is doing to the second Trump administration. And Mike Johnson might be a really nice guy. John Thune might be a really nice guy. But they are not delivering. And we know what happens when the Democrats get back in control. Everybody is looking at this and saying it's existential. And there is nothing happening. Nothing at all is happening. Finally impeached Boasberg. Why didn't they do it in March? I just don't get it. Here's another set of polls that I think kind of tell us what's going on here. Would it be better if President Trump spent more time dealing with domestic issues like the economy? And maybe it's a no-brainer, but 62% of Americans say yes. Only 24% say no. And by party, it's everybody. 70% of Democrats say yes. 54% of Republicans. Only 28% say no. Independents, 61 to 23. So everybody's like, what are you doing here? This is not why we elected you. We're not getting what we wanted. When did they get what they wanted? Again, when Doge was going nuts, when we were talking about USAID and sending people to look at Fort Knox. What happened to that, by the way? Here's another analysis I thought was good. We'll just read it. Robert Barnes has some really good takes. A few notes on the election, a massive alarm for the GOP. First, this was a nationalized election. I agree. Candidate quality didn't matter. Well, it never matters on the left anymore. They will vote for a ham sandwich. Candidate spending didn't matter. Local issues didn't matter. Incumbent history didn't matter. Individual scandals didn't matter. That's right, the whole Naval Academy thing. It swept in blue areas, swing areas, and red areas equally alike. Yeah, there were some major red areas that flipped. The wave hit Pennsylvania judicial races, Georgia Public Service Commission races, and Virginia state legislative races as much as the high-profile races in blue areas. The wave crested like a tsunami, felt coast to coast from the Northeast to the Southwest, from the Mid Atlantic to the mountains. Okay, he's getting a little poetic here. Yeah, Prop 50 passed, obviously. The Democrats needed it to pass. It's in the Democrat stronghold. Of course, it passed. Second, new MAGA completely switched back off. Yup, either staying home or flipping their votes to Democrats. That's that 42% of Trump 2024 support that is not Republicans. See Hispanic precincts pretty much anywhere, the youth vote and working class areas in general. You know who they voted for in New York? Mamdani. We've been saying this about the kids. They are not conservative. They just want the system burned down. And if Trump isn't going to give it to them, they gave Trump his Republican win. But if Trump isn't going to give it to them, they're going to vote for a Democrat socialist, and the Republicans will never win in another election. Third, the New York City race reveals the populist rebellion reaches deep within Democrat ranks. Yep, as the upstart Mamdani promising to tax big corporations and the rich, everybody hates the big corporations. And the Republicans are still attached at the hip to these people, taking their money and covering for them. Look no further than how Republicans in Washington, D.C. completely rolled over on the soda and SNAP issue, and all of these influencers immediately sold out just to make a buck. Unfreaking believable. Promising to tax big corporations and the rich to give universal benefits in housing, healthcare, transportation, and the cost of food. This is where we're going. This is the fight. With AI, with the increasing job scarcity, the left is increasingly going to offer universal basic income, and the Republican Party, the party of late stage capitalism, has no answer for it. Swept the young working class vote across most of the city. Remember, these people were kind of okay, like a really big margin of them, like almost 40%, were okay with that United Healthcare guy getting shot because their health insurance costs too much. Fourth, Israel is a losing issue, signified when New York City, the most Jewish city in the nation, chooses a Muslim mayor promising to arrest Bibi if he steps foot into the city. Israel is rapidly becoming a political pariah in America. True statement. And no amount of whining about it from the pro-Israel community will change that. Also true statement. I think it contributed to yesterday's loss. Only a reversal of policy by Bibi can mitigate this. I agree with that. Ackman understood this, which is why he spent the election panicking. Well, then he also immediately sucked up to Mamdani on Twitter. It was pretty gross. Fifth, there is still time for Trump to salvage 2026. The 12-point swing in 2021 did not lead to as big a sweep in 2022 as many expected. Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, I mean, it was mitigated by the Supreme Court Dobbs decision, but the key is which party spends the next year persuading working class voters that they can and will provide solutions to the problems of bread and butter that they face. When he says solutions, he means results and not promises. Results and not accusations. Mamdani's a socialist is not going to work. Will cut your prices is not going to work. We have basically a year to turn this into the land of milk and honey. And the window is closing, and Republicans are not even on the battlefield. The better economic populist pitch will win over these voters in 2026 and 2028. So I disagree here, because in the current paradigm with the current Republican Party, I don't even think voters are going to believe them on the pitch. And the election had ramifications for the betting market. You know, before the election, Democrats were favored to take over the House by, about 20 points, roughly, give or take. And it blew out pretty big. And where are we at now? It's 36 points. So a pretty big jolt in the Democrat direction. Obviously, this can retrace and it's moved around a lot. But at no point has the betting market said the Republican Party is going to win next year. And the Democrat Party has maintained the lead on the generic ballot still. It's lower single digits. It's like 3 points right now. But I guess it's a war of gerrymandering attrition in which the Republican Party is going to absolutely pass zero legislation. That's what it looks like right now. I don't think they have the votes for the nuclear option. I think they want to do it. They probably only have like 30 votes. There's so many corrupt people. Exhibit A, where is the accountability for COVID? I haven't heard about that at all. Not one bit. And what are the boomer cons? The people trying to assert control back over the Republican Party, raging against the Zoomers who have different values, who are refusing to accept traditional conservatism, which has been corrupted. It's been corrupted. It's globo homo corporate welfare with a smattering of Judeo-Christian values that absolutely don't reflect any Christian worldview. Kind of weird. Interventionist foreign policy and, trickle down, cut corporate tax rate capitalism and pull yourself up by your bootstraps grit. It's not going to sell to the Zoomers. And you got Nick Fuentes, who is still in the freaking news. In fact, the number of searches for Nick Fuentes actually just passed Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro put the cherry on top of the mainstream Nick Fuentes. Did Nick Fuentes build this movement? Not really. This movement was always there. Everybody just tried to forget about it. Is it a neo-Nazi movement? No, it's an angry edgelord young men movement. And they've realized that if they act a certain manner online, then they get a lot of attention. And essentially what you have here is that they waved their middle finger at the neocon establishment. And instead of ignoring them, the neocon establishment crashed out. This is Mark Levin posting just yesterday. Fuentes, if that is his real name, looks like I got under prepubescent little Adolf's unpure quasi-white skin. Isn't that weird though? He's calling Nick Fuentes a racist anti-Semite, and the very first sentence he says is like racist. His illiterate, incoherent brain farts exited the wrong end of his dwarf-like body. You see, this is what, people say the woke right. And the people actually acting woke are the people who accuse other folks of racism and then immediately act racist. I don't even understand if he acknowledges the absolute contrast here. But he does have his committed following of groypers. But he says gropers. I don't know how many actual committed followers he has. I think there's a lot of people who just watch Nick Fuentes. Remember back when they were trying to cancel violent video games and everybody said Mortal Kombat, it's the worst. Nobody can play Mortal Kombat. Well, it's like there were lots of violent video games and we all played them. And everybody's like, well, Mortal Kombat's like not even really that good. Like, why are you trying to cancel it? It's not going to make any difference. We're just going to go play another game. And I think that's the way to look at Nick Fuentes. He's actually getting more views on his videos than Ben Shapiro. And there's probably a cohort of like 3 to 5 million young men. Many of them are staffers in Capitol Hill that don't call themselves groypers, but just like watch Nick Fuentes because 95% of the stuff he says like isn't anti-Semitic racist screeds. It's not. So obviously he said some bad things, but they're trying to cancel him by cherry picking only the worst. He really should replace that funeral-like suit with a brown shirt. Okay, so now you have like a multimillionaire punching down on a 27-year-old, like a good Nazi. As for deportation, given his mixed background, back to racism, he would qualify for expulsion to a number of third world countries. He's a naturalized citizen where he can crawl back into his little dark hole like the cockroach he is, psycho bastard. And what's wild is like Mark Levin's got a lot of followers. What is that? 5 million Twitter followers. Nick Fuentes only has like 1 million. This has been seen by 2 million people almost. It's only got 3,000 likes. Only 3,000 likes, 5,700 comments. And immediately within an hour, Nick Fuentes ratioed him brutally. It was like a 20-to-1 ratio right out of the gates. 87,000 likes. All he said was, "Are you okay?" This is the perfect response. Perfect response to a crashing out boomer is to smile and imply that more is coming. This is exactly like when somebody flashes you a finger in the car and you just have a full-on road rage incident. Like that is exactly what is happening here. Nick has these people eating out of their hand. He's growing rapidly. They could have just ignored him. It could have just been two people, him and Tucker, just talking on a podcast, and it would have gone away. You mainstream this guy, and now he has a gun pointed at the Republican Party head. And this was everything Twitter was talking about during the election. Is Twitter the real world? No. but it absolutely, absolutely had an impact. So I don't know what to tell you. The Republican Party has to do something. And I know they have their rules. I know they have their limitations. I know they have their donors. But I really do think that we're looking at like functional irrelevancy. I do think with real leadership and some maybe new money and organizational strategy, maybe some kind of new body that can do research, that can help these candidates, that can pipeline people. The real problem is real true MAGA candidates can't get a start in the establishment, and they're going to lose. A lot of them are going to lose. And the Republican Party has to know how to change politics so that they can run these people, move the ball downfield, even if they lose, and somehow make it so the entire Republican Party isn't just like a donor grift harvesting operation. They have to pick which spirit animal they want, moving at a glacial pace, figuring out over the course of like a year and a half as every second ticks away whether they're going to be able to muster the courage to use the nuclear option because the Democrats are going to, or are they going to be the honey badger and show up to work tomorrow and rock everybody's world? We're in a situation where, unfortunately, I really do think they need to play fast and loose, but with the rules. And we're going to poll on it. Somebody proposed a really great question about Caesar, and we'll see, because I think a lot of people would admit that things are getting rapidly really, really, really bad. We could just be a couple years away from like a complete takeover of Democrat socialists ushering in universal basic income. Or maybe the neocons will just kick us off into a NATO war before that happens. I don't know. Clear the decks of all of these uppity Zoomers. Just send them off to the Eurasian mud field. So again, sorry for dooming, but like this is really where we're at. The Republican Party has to decide if it's going to be relevant right now. What would make it relevant? Casting aside its obsession with traditional Republican values. You aren't going to win by trying to tell people conservatives great. It's not going to win. It didn't work for them. It conserved nothing. All it seemed to have conserved is our special relationship with Israel and your graft operation. That's what it seems to have conserved. And I think people know it. People have eyeballs. People are going to be able to see through the lies. Now, just take a look at that session where Tucker Carlson interviewed Ted Cruz and he asked him about AIPAC. And I don't want to make this about Israel. It just happened to be about AIPAC. And Ted Cruz's body language and response were so blatantly obvious, inauthentic, and lying. And Tucker Carlson is just asking questions, lobbing truth grenades at this guy. Republicans, you need to be authentic and based. You might not know what that means, but you have to figure it out. People want to see action, based action, action for them, action that hits them in the feels because they know that you're looking out for them. Very few people are doing that right now. You know who is doing that? This guy, JD Vance. Going back to Polymarket, to the betting market here. This is Republican presidential nominee 2028, and the odds are up to 59%. JD Vance, only 9% Marco Rubio. Everybody else is below 5%. The next highest one is Trump for another term. He's beating all these people by an astounding amount. Tucker, wow, Tucker's on there, 4%. Ron DeSantis, 3%. Donald Trump's beating Ron DeSantis. But here's the thing that matters. Look, JD Vance was at 54%. He gives one speech at Turning Point USA, where just through answering questions, he presents, in my opinion, the best presentation of what America First looks like in a post-Donald Trump MAGA world. And what happened? Immediately, the betting market rewarded him 54% before, 59% after. That's, look, you see it right on the chart. That's a really big deal. And you know, a lot of people just watching that, a lot of the Washington, D.C. Republicans, it was like nails on the chalkboard to them, because I think one of the reasons that they're making such a stink out of the Tucker Carlson stuff is because they're hoping, these establishment scumbags are hoping that enough mud splashes on JD Vance that it'll somehow knock him down. And it's like not going to work at all. But I really do think a lot of these people would burn the Republican Party down rather than to seed it to a new era of interests. But it's the fourth turning, and that new era is coming, and you're going to see it play out issue by issue. If you think the freak out over Israel is a lot, just wait until the young people turn on NATO. That's going to be wild. And if you want to see that polling, make sure you follow us, like the video, subscribe, Rasmussen_poll. Check out our new channel, Rasmussen_rewind. And if you haven't checked it out yet, you can get our long form streaming content in audio at all the podcast places. Apple Podcasts, it's there. Rasmussen Reports Reality Check. Please go follow it. Really would appreciate it. It would help us grow the channel. And finally, RasmussenReports.com. We have a free daily newsletter. You can sign up and you can get the headlines in your inbox, and would really appreciate support as a reader, subscriber, only $5 a month. And I'll tell you what, nobody paid us to poll this cycle, and a lot of people made a lot of money doing really bad polls in these states. You would have known what was happening if we had been out there polling a lot. But a lot of people don't really want accurate polling, so if you could support us, it would really help us out. If you've learned something, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Follow us on X at Rasmussen_poll and myself at Honest Pollster. You can watch our videos on YouTube at Rasmussen_poll and Rasmussen_rewind, and on Rumble at Rasmussen Reports. We stream multiple times a week on Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and Getter. Thanks for watching.